Hey everyone, Kyle Erickson here. The September Apple event is wrapped up for another year, and I think we got pretty much what we were expecting. The new iPhones, AirPods, and watches, and with that being said, I just want to go over everything. What's new, what got decent upgrades, and what didn't really change all that much. The first thing that we saw was the Apple Watch with updates to 2 current models and 1 completely new one as well. The Apple Watch Series 8 got a pretty minor upgrade, and it's not all that different from the Series 7, but it does have a new temperature sensor in it that for now seems to be aimed at tracking and monitoring fertility. I think that will likely expand to things like fever tracking at some point, but for now, it's just advertised for fertility. Outside of that, some smaller updates like crash detection, which I don't think is a huge deal given the updates that we saw in the iPhone that I will get into in a bit. A lot of the other updates you'll get on older devices as well through the Watch OS 9 updates, including a new low power mode that will extend your battery life by about double. Essentially, what that low power mode does is disable or limit the use of things like the always on display, workout auto start, heart health notifications, and other things while still giving you the basic functionality of your watch. You'll also see some updates for things like international roaming, the compass and workout app, and more advanced sleep tracking features, but like I said, that's all included in the older watch versions as well. For me, I was hoping that there was going to be a little bit more there. I'm likely going to stick with my Series 6 watch. I don't know that there's enough there for me to consider the upgrade to the Series 8. There's also the new version of the Watch SE, which is Apple's cheapest watch outside of something like the Series 3. It's got the same chipset as the Series 8, and it's about 20% faster than the previous SE version. Outside of that, there's not much of note with the SE, at least it came up during the event. I don't think that there's anything particularly noteworthy there, but the newest watch model kind of stole the show, at least when it came to watches, the Apple Watch Ultra. So this is basically for extreme sports and things like diving, stuff with harsh conditions where a normal watch probably isn't going to cut it. It's definitely the largest Apple Watch by a long shot with a 49mm front display. The housing is aerospace titanium and everything on it is a little bit more rugged. The 2 things that I first noticed about it, 1, there was a little extra screen real estate in stuff like the fitness app, and 2, it looks gigantic on small wrists. I've got the 40mm Series 6 here, and I can't imagine how big it would look on me. Still, it would be handy to have that extra screen real estate, especially if you're counting on metrics or tracking in a competitive space. And they also made it a little bit easier to use if you're in the middle of an activity, adding the action button. This is a little button on the side that's international orange in color versus just regular orange, which I guess is more regional. Anyway, you can use that action button to do things like switch to the next leg of a race or segment, and I'm assuming that you can probably switch to the next set of a workout and just generally manage things where you don't have to remove focus from what you're doing to continue an activity. It's got another speaker built into it, which is there to increase the overall volume level, dual frequency L1 and L5 GPS for people who are in conditions where GPS isn't super accurate. Maybe there's tall buildings or trees, things like that. There's new depth sensors and higher water resistance ratings and standards. It does have 3 bands, which all appear to be pretty heavy duty. The Alpine Loop, Ocean Band, and the Trail Loop. So this is definitely geared towards a specific group of people, although I'm sure we'll see a lot of folks pick this up that don't necessarily fit into those categories. For me, the Ultra looks cool, and it does a lot of neat things, but for most people, I think a regular Apple Watch will do just fine. The Ultra has a hefty price tag too, starting at $799, which is double the price of the Series 8. But less than what was being rumored at $1,000, but regardless, it's insanely expensive if you're just using it casually. What I think applies to a much broader spectrum of people would be the next generation of AirPods Pros that were also announced at the event just after the watches. These have the new H2 chip, new low distortion audio drivers, and personalized spatial audio like on the 3rd gen AirPods and AirPods Max. The noise cancellation is supposed to be improved by 2 times as much over the last generation, and there are new touch controls and longer battery life. The touch controls seem to be getting mixed reactions from people, whether they like them or dislike them, so I am interested to see what that experience is like. As far as the battery life goes, Apple says that you can get 6 hours on the buds and 30 with the case. So for a set of wireless earbuds, it's pretty average. Probably on the lower end of average for wireless earbuds these days, but still respectable. The case has precision finding and an internal speaker to help find them through the Find My app, and you can now charge this via Lightning cable, MagSafe, or with the Apple Watch charger. I'm likely going to pick a pair of these up. They do sound like they have some decent upgrades over the previous version, and I think just like everything else Apple makes, they do work really well in the ecosystem. As much as AirPods can have trouble connecting in meetings and things of that nature, regular wireless earbuds are often worse in my opinion. Just speaking to Bluetooth and wireless, we heard a lot of rumors about lossless audio coming to these headphones and maybe a proprietary wireless protocol to accomplish that, but there wasn't any mention of that. We will see if that gets announced after the fact at some point, but I wouldn't expect it. Also, I know that some folks are pretty upset that the AirPods case and the new iPhone showed up with Lightning ports instead of USB-C. I think Apple really likes having the Lightning port on its devices because they've got more control over the cables and the accessories, and I think that they'll try and hang on to that as long as possible. I've also heard from some people that worked at the Apple store when Apple switched from the older pinout to the current Lightning port. There were people coming into the Apple store literally every 2 minutes complaining about it, and I feel like they're probably going to try and avoid that at all costs. From AirPods, we went to the part of the event that everyone seems to get the most excited for, the phones. The iPhone 14 was kind of interesting this year as it didn't really see a huge jump in performance specs-wise. It's still got an A15 chip, but essentially what they've done there is jammed a lot of the iPhone 13 Pro into the regular iPhone 14, added some things and took some away. It looks identical to the previous generation, so no major design updates. Still has a notch and comes in 5 different colors: black, white, blue, purple, and red. They've also ditched the iPhone mini and added the iPhone 14 Plus, which offers a 6.7-inch screen, the same size that you would see on the Pro Max versus a normal 6.1-inch. This is again one of those areas where I see some people disappointed that the Mini is no longer available. Some people are into the Plus and some people aren't. Where I could see the iPhone 14 Plus getting used a lot is folks who have their text size dialed up on their phones. The bigger screen real estate can help out a lot there without distorting the UI too much. And let's face it, a lot of people just like larger screen sizes. Looking at the cameras, the front-facing and main camera both are upgraded to mirror the iPhone 13 Pro, with the main camera seeing a 49% increase in low light performance, while the front-facing camera has improved by 38% and now has autofocus. Part of that boost in low light performance is due to Deep Fusion and something Apple calls Photonic Engine. What the Photonic Engine actually is the hardware in the 14 series combined with the machine learning in iOS 16. So this only is in the iPhone 14 lineup. Another thing exclusive to the 14 series, as far as I know, is Action Mode, which is another new thing in the camera system that I'm interested in. This is supposed to be a new stabilization mode. It's supposed to have gimbal-like stabilization. They didn't go too much into detail with this, but I'm assuming that it's done electronically. Electronic stabilization can be hit or miss, so I am really curious to see what this looks like. Is this actually going to be useful, or is it going to be just a gimmicky thing that we just throw away? Beyond the camera updates, there's a few other things to note with the iPhone 14. You've now got emergency satellite SOS, which is kind of neat, where you can essentially connect to a satellite if you're in a remote place and you need help. And there's also crash detection, just like in the Apple Watch. This is what I was referring to earlier. It's cool crash detection is in the watch, but for me, I've always got my phone with me whenever I travel, so if I've got this feature already on my phone, it's not something that I'm necessarily going to need in my watch. Maybe it is better in the watch and I'm missing the point there, but in any case, not something that I'm overly concerned with. That about wraps up the regular 14. It starts at $799 and the Plus is $899. I did find it interesting that the shipping time of the Plus is delayed to October while the regular model ships next week. I'm assuming that's because they need to manufacture all the new units and components of the Plus, where with the design and the housing on the 6.1 inch being the same as last year, there's probably a lot already set up and made. Last but certainly not least, the iPhone 14 Pro was what I was most looking forward to seeing. There were rumors about a pill cutout replacing the notch, and that was all true. The cutout is what Apple calls the dynamic island, and I really like what we saw there. The dynamic island expands when you get calls, use Face ID, and is used in a bunch of different apps and use cases. Totally something Apple would do to take something as simple as a camera and a sensor cutout and turn it into a feature. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this is like in actual use, and seeing how much control you have over it in the code as well. I bet we're gonna see some really cool stuff done with that island. The display itself is brighter this year with 600 nits typical brightness that can peak to 2000 nits. So it's the same as the Pro XDR display. Again, it is a ProMotion display, and this one can go from 1 to 120 Hertz. That 1 Hertz value enables something else new to iPhone this year, the always on display. I've wanted to see this on iOS ever since switching from Android years ago, and I'm just super excited to see that along with this bright ProMotion display with the pill cutout and how it all works together. The iPhone 14 Pro comes in 4 different colors: space black, silver, gold, and my personal favorite, deep purple. And normally I'd stick with a black or a white, but something about that purple, maybe it's because it's not overly bright or it's muted or it's just different. I think that is the one that I'll be picking up, and I feel like in general, a lot of folks like that one the most. Enough about the design. On the inside of the phone, there's an A16 chip built on a 4nm process, which is pretty wild. The size of these manufacturing processes are getting so tiny. It's just crazy to think about how small some of the things in here actually are. Because it is smaller, it uses 20% less power than the A15, and it has 50% more memory bandwidth. There wasn't a whole lot of noteworthy stuff said other than buzzwords like the fastest chip in a smartphone ever and 40% faster than the competition, which doesn't really tell us a lot, but the most noticeable change for me this year is the camera system. The main camera is now 48 megapixels and has a 65% larger quad pixel sensor, which is essentially using pixel binning. That combines or groups pixels together and produces a clean 12 megapixel image. There's a new ultra-wide camera with a bigger sensor, and that photonic engine is again present here, which is supposed to improve low light photos across the board for all the lenses. When it comes to video, cinematic mode will now work in 4K, where before it was only in 1080p. And you get that new action mode just like in the regular 14. I'm looking forward to digging into this camera system when I get mine, as this is probably one of, if not the biggest camera changes or upgrades that we've seen in the iPhone. The Pro model starts at the same price as before, $999 for the regular Pro and $1099 for the Pro Max. I know a lot of folks were saying that this was likely going to jump up and the base storage would be up to 256 gigabytes, but that's still at 128 as well. It seems like in general people were expecting everything this year to be more expensive than what it was announced at, which is kind of a pleasant surprise for a lot of our wallets. That was basically it for the event this year, and I thought that overall it was pretty average. Some really cool new stuff with the Pro iPhone, some expected improvements we're used to seeing, and of course the new Ultra Watch. For myself, I'm going to be ordering the iPhone 14 Pro, and I might also grab some AirPods Pros, but I'm leaning towards sticking with my Series 6 watch for now. I'd love to know what everyone else thought of the event, and if you are planning on picking up anything that you saw, or maybe you're thinking of buying a previous gen phone or watch now that they'll be discounted with the new announcements. Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button if you want to see more tech related content, or if you want to binge watch a terrible TV show with me and make references to each other that no one else understands, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next upload.